This is Black Social Capital. This is Black Social Capital.
What's good? What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome to season 4 of the Black Social Capital Podcast. I'm Dr. Theo.
I'm Dr. Jaqui.
And as you can see, we've got our new gear on this season. We wanted to kick off this season. I don't think we've done this in any other season, but we really wanted to give a shout out to our D9 fan, but specifically the only truly bonded family in D9. Because whether Sigma or Zeta, it's all Phi Beta.
Phi Beta, yes.
And we just wanted to share a little bit with y'all this season, a little bit more about ourselves, and we wanted to kick off this season by sharing something that brought us together in the first place. Without these organizations, you wouldn't have this amazing podcast, and you definitely wouldn't have so many members of the D9 within our past seasons as well. And so we just want to take the time to share about our orgs, Phi Beta Sigma on this side, of course,
and Zeta Phi Beta over here,
and we'll just get things kicked off this season. So I'm super excited to share because I'm old. Apparently now I'm old. I reached true old head status in my organization. 20 years in the game, representing the spring 2003 Solo Ace Club, the New Upsilon chapter at the University of Southern California. For those of you that think I'm speaking gibberish, it's because I am. One of the things to know about historically Black Greek letter organizations is that many of us join in college, but it's a lifetime commitment, right? And so that definitely distinguishes us from other organizations you might hear about through the college experience. But our organizations were founded for larger purposes, right? And so I want to give Dr. Jaqui an opportunity to introduce herself. Introduce yourself.
Look, Dr. Jaqui, spring 07, solo, start to finish, Ace Club, because what else would I be? UC Berkeley campus, Gamma Beta, I said UC Berkeley already, and none other than Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, the best sorority. Right. I just feel like spending a bunch of history, but we're not gonna do that because, like you said, it's a bunch of
y'all got Google. Y'all got Google to find out about these orgs.
Yes. And research my org because my org is just absolutely the best.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like about all the D9 orgs, I would say, is that each org has great history. Each org has phenomenal leadership, both past and present. And each org is looking to build leaders so that they can have future leadership, right? So, for those of you that don't know about Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, we were founded on the campus of Howard University, January 9th, 1914. And we've got lots of things that we aspire to be, but we aspire to be brothers that lift up the model of culture for service and service for humanity. We often say that service is our brand, right? You'll find that in both us and our sister organization, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority. Incorporated, right? They're a community conscious, action oriented organization. And I know
Mhm.
both of those things because, we know about each other.
Mhm.
We kick it with each other. We real people. Um, but I think that for me, my journey in my organization has allowed me to have, um, new friendships, a larger network, and it's helped me pivot when I was looking to make moves as well. But I would be remiss if I didn't start off to say these organizations. Again, is how Dr. Jaqui and I met. She got dropped off at my doorstep because we are
As it
in
happened.
organizations together.
I'm
So
definitely the little sister he never wanted.
never at all. I was living my life doing just fine.
Now it's better.
I mean, a whole decade plus better. But Dr. Jackie, you want to tell that story? Because I always think it's funny when you tell the story.
All right. So I have been a Zeta for, oh my goodness. Let me do some math.
Yeesh. Is the mathing?
I've been a Zeta for 16 years. I am spring '07. I said that before, but I forgot how old I was. So I have not quite yet hit the 20-year mark, but I'm working on it. So when I became a Zeta, it was in the Bay Area, but I'm originally from LA. And there was this Zeta who is Dr. Theo's Sans, meaning she also came in spring '03. And I just, she was a little older than me and Zeta, of course. And I just thought she was like everything. I wanted to be her friend. I wanted to hang out with her all the time. She was just like the person I was trying to follow around. So then she moved to LA a few years later, and we did develop a close friendship. I really did look up to her. But she moved to LA, and it was cool. She seemed really happy about it, and I of course just wanted her to live her best. And then I moved to LA, and I was like, I'm back. Like, we about to hang out all the time. But she had become a Zeta in LA. So she was back in her Zeta home and ready to just kind of do her Zeta home type things, hang out with her chapter that she originally came in with, and all of her close friends and all of that. So there wasn't, not that there was no space for me, but it wasn't all that type of space in her life. And it's understandable. That's how life go. So she introduced me to Theo. And then I didn't see her again for many, many, many years. Like she literally took me to an event at your house, I think.
Yep. It was a
And
party at
that
my
was it.
house. We gave some dap, gave some hugs, and then all of a sudden you was over every day.
Yeah.
I was like, how did this happen? I
Best
don't
thing that ever happened to you.
I don't know how this happened. But
Okay.
if it wasn't for Dr. Jackie, I wouldn't have finished my doctoral program. I know that. I Dr. Jackie actually started her program before I started mine,
Mhm.
and she was studying and doing all the right things, and
I
it
mean, I
seemed like
wouldn't
she was
say
doing the
that.
right things,
It seemed like it.
but
I was struggling.
it seemed like she was doing the right thing. So when she had to study, I was being a good frat brother and saying, "Hey, you can come over to my house. I got good
Mhm.
Wi-Fi. I'm
You had good
I'm
Wi-Fi.
doing homework every now and again just for different things that I'm doing." And I was like, "Well, if you're gonna be in the doctoral program for a while, I might as well do that too. That sounds good to me." So
Yep.
all of a sudden, we both struggling at the kitchen table trying to write dissertation material, everything from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 4 and 5, talking about what chapter you on. Did you write today? When that answer was no, that means we were staying up later to
Yep.
get those things done.
Yep. And then dissertation defenses and graduations. Woo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good times. I never want to do that again.
Not at all. This is also true about the intake process for many people. They never want to do that again. And by
Yes.
that, I just mean learn lots of information
Yeah.
all in one time. It stresses you out.
Just a little learning
But
curve.
lots of things to learn from whatever intake process you have, which is great. Um, Actually, Dr. Jackie, what attracted you to Zeta? You know, to me, I see Zetas from coast to coast, and they all have a tinge of and a common thread. But what was your thing that drew you to Zeta?
All right, I can't promise I got that common thread, but let me tell you my story. So, I was actually anti-Greek once I figured out what Greek life was, because I'm first gen college student, right? First gen like university, I would say, because my dad did his associate's degree, so he knew how to tell me stuff about how to get through college classes and all of that. But there was no like, all right, so this is how you make it through a university, and then this is how the Black experience. Like, I didn't get any of that training, so when I showed up to Berkeley, it was like, well, figured out, right? So I actually wasn't really in love with the even though I loved like the organizations and I loved the people in them, I just didn't see it for me. So that's what I mean when I say I was anti-Greek, not like, oh, like in them all or any of that. Like in
We
the
also know
organization.
you don't like systems. You always want to overthrow things. So
Yeah,
you know.
that is also very true. Very true. And that's really what my Berkeley life was. Like, I was like, oh, y'all gonna help me figure out how to like break these systems that don't work. I'm gonna focus on that. It don't really seem like Greek life is working for me. And it was actually at the end of my third year. So I know a lot of people, or not, I know a lot of people at this point, but I didn't know at the time. Like, most people join these orgs, they know about them in advance, and well, before they get to their college campus, and then they join like maybe they second year, if not they first, if they really like know exactly what to do. So I didn't really even have a conversation with my first Zeta. I didn't know what Zeta Phi Beta was. I didn't have my first conversation with a Zeta about Zeta until the end of my third year, and I didn't join until the semester that I graduated. It took me a full year to like to navigate that process and like get in contact with the right people, because there was no Zetas on my campus. So I in effect brought the chapter back after a few years absence, which is why I hadn't seen it. So in that conversation with that particular Zeta, will always be super appreciative to her for showing me something very different. Because it was just like, we were just having a conversation. She wasn't actively like wearing letters and recruiting or any of that. It was just very much a conversation. And then she was like, you seem real cool. Are you considering a sorority? And I was like, oh, no, nah, that ain't for me. And she was like, I think you should look into Zeta if you have never looked into it before. And just that approach was such a breath of fresh air, because sororities up until that point, in my experience, had seemed very elitist. Everything would like, even if you thought they were cool, like you couldn't even just say you liked them. Like, even if you weren't interested in joining, like it just seems so taboo to say anything about a Greek org, like you liked it or anything. Like, it just seems so taboo up until that point. So for a member to actually go, you seem like you might want to seek this out, it was like really refreshing. And I did. And I did my research, and I've heard someone say that
What you
joining an
mean you
org.
did your research though? You know.
Okay, fair. So you said that a little bit earlier when we were talking about like research our different orgs, and I was like, oh, research mine is the best. One thing I love specifically about Bay Area Zetas up here is we will tell you you need to research all of the organizations you could possibly join. So if you would join a fraternity because you male identified, like look at all five of them. If you would join a sorority because you're female identified, um, then look at all four of the sororities, because we're the Divine Nine. There's nine of us. Yes. So um I researched all the sororities, and when I think the thing that really had me smitten with Zeta was, of course, wanting that conversation. It's always nice to be like, oh, you should be part of my exclusive organization, invite only organization. Like, that's nice. But when I researched the different types of community service that each organization did, Zeta's community service really struck a chord with me. And it was like, okay, I would be connected to an organization that is doing this type of work for the community for the rest of my life if I join now. And not to say that, you can't join outside of college, but I could also get some of that college experience if I do it now, which seemed kind of nice, but something I really hadn't considered for myself. So
Mhm.
yeah, you look at every single org. You go to all of their web pages. You look at the different initiatives that they do. If I had been maybe a little more savvy, or if I was going to be advising someone who was on a college campus, who didn't know, from their family about different Greek life, or different Greek organizations, or from maybe media, and like had really researched Greek organizations, I would say I lost my train of thought. So
Look, sometimes it be
it
like
was
that.
gonna be deep though.
It was gonna be deep.
I,
I'll
it'll
pick up
come
what you was
back.
putting down. I'll pick up what you was
Look, I
putting
was
down.
going somewhere.
Look, so research to me included um okay, websites and websites, Instagram if we had it
Oh,
back
yes.
then, right? So that's broad, right? That's for general consumption, right?
Yeah.
The next thing I would do if you were a collegiate, right? Look at what that chapter is actually doing on your campus, right?
Yes.
If you don't have somebody on your campus, there definitely is a local chapter not too far away, right? Find out who, where, what, why, and how is that chapter locally, right? I think that's important. You mentioned that coming to college, you didn't really have a concept of the D9 orgs. I didn't either, although I got money from several organizations, right? Like I got money from Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I was like, why are they wearing like pink hats and like green dresses? I don't get it, right? I got money from Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and I got
Okay.
money from Kappa Alpha Psi
Oh,
Fraternity
you was
Incorporated.
racking it up. You need to let me hold something.
Look, I was the person that knew that they couldn't go to college without funding, and I saw that these organizations had scholarships that I could apply for, that I qualified for, that not that many people were also applying for. So I was like, look, I'm gonna I'm gonna rack I'm gonna rack up all the money that I can, right? And that's what I did. But I didn't make the connection that it was a fraternity or a sorority that was giving me money until I got to campus, and I was like, oh, I see some people that's wearing those same like color combinations. Oh, what do they do? Right. And so that's where I say, your local impact is also important now as well, right? Because sometimes, especially for first generation college students or non-traditional students, it's hard to make those connections about what these organizations are or who these organizations are, right? So that was my experience, but that was also part of my research. I was able to pinpoint organizations and say, oh, I see what you've done in both scenarios. And the next portion was, do I fit in, or where do I fit in terms of these organizations? And so for me, um, one of the reasons that I chose Sigma is that there was one Sigma on my yard at the time when I was boiling down to make decisions, and this person was doing the same amount of work as chapters that had several members. They were just as involved. They were doing service and organizing folks to be a part of what they were doing. and I thought that that was great. I was like, I can be of support here. You know, if this person is doing as much as they can, I can also be of service and continue to uplift. So so that's kind of how I made my choice, and the rest has been history. I've now gone on to like have chapter leadership locally. I've done leadership regionally. I've been on international committees. Like there's levels to this, right? So
Yep.
there's some folks that just pay their dues. There's some people that's just like, look, that's a thing that I did in college. But one of the things for me was that I learned that anything that I was trying to figure out at work, you know, any skill that I was trying to grow at work, I would try to test a piece of that, like within my organization, because the organization was a safe space, right? If I was trying to figure out how to plan a program or raise money, I'll raise money locally with my chapter, right? And then that could translate into professional uh expertise later, right? Like, oh, I was able to raise X amount of money with a group of black men. Isn't
Hmm.
that something that you need at your job? Someone that is of color, DEI work, that knows how to raise money or do X or build community or these different types of things. And so I think those opportunities to cross pollinate what I was doing was always helpful.
Okay, so I remembered what I was gonna say, and you already said it, so I'm not gonna
Uh,
repeat it because that's how we think. But I'm gonna tell you a story, and then I'm gonna ask you the question. Well, actually, I'm gonna do it in reverse order. First, I'm gonna ask you the question, but I'm gonna tell the story first because I'm gonna answer my own question first. So,
mm-hmm.
what is something that surprised you about the organization after you joined it? So, let me tell you my story. I'm an only child.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't have sisters and brothers. So and I had friends, like really close friends growing up, but not exactly the same. I saw how they interacted with their siblings and was like, "Ooh, that is not for me." But so when I joined again, I told y'all earlier, I joined because I was looking at the service that they were doing. I loved that they were always tied to college campuses. The grad chapters give a lot of money back to college campuses and college students. Um, so I was like, that's just so far in my values. Like, this is where I want to be. But when I joined, shortly after, there is a Zeta who is just, she's everything for me. Her name is Teacher Grogan. Shout out to Teacher. She's a charter member of her chapter at UC Santa Barbara. But anyways, so Tidra was one of the Zetas that helped me like through the like paperwork and all of that, right? So she was like helping me and just orienting me, introducing me to people. She's just so sweet and so helpful. And just so real, right? Like if I did something wrong, she'd be like, that ain't right. Go do it again, right? You need those people in your life. But after I became a Zeta, I was about to go back home and drive from the Bay to LA. For
Mm-hmm.
anyone who doesn't know, that's like a 6-7 hour drive. And I was going in the middle of the night, and she was like, "Wait, you going where? When?" Like, "Oh, okay. Well, if you get stranded or anything like that, make sure you call me and I will come and get you." Now, mind you, she lived an hour north of the Bay Area. And I was going 6-7 hours south. And she said, "I don't care where your car stops in that range. I will come and get you." And I was like floored. I was like, "I got triple A." She was like, "Mm-mm, you need to call me." And that was like the beginning of me understanding what sisterhood was, because again, only child. And that little lesson right there, one, like, it was just a very beautiful moment for me. Like, I was kind of emotional afterward because I realized what happened. Like, she really gonna come get me. And like, this lady, like, she an adult. She was in the grad chapter, right? And she had a
Mm-hmm.
husband. Like, she just gonna get up in the middle of the night and come at me? Like, what you gonna tell him? Anyways, and that
Mhm.
translated really well to one time about like 5 years later, I actually did get stranded because the mountains closed, the grapevine closed, and I couldn't get on the other side of the mountain, and it was snowing, and I
Mhm.
was stuck in my little bitty rental car that didn't have all that great heat, and it was like you can't go past till the morning. And I called around, and a Zeta, who I had only known for maybe a year or two, called her mother, because she realized that I was only about an hour away from her mom. She
Mhm.
called her mother and said, "My sorority sister is stuck. I would like for you to help her." And her mom said, "Go ahead. Tell her to come here, give her the address. We're gonna have somewhere for her to sleep." They had breakfast for me in the morning. Like, when I tell you, these organizations create some beautiful experiences for you where you just like sometimes you just need somebody, right? And it's, oh, I ain't never had that before.
Hey, warm fuzzies, but
Yeah.
also it's exactly why the organizations were created in the first place, right?
Yep.
When you think about like the history of our orgs, starting in the early 1900s, through 1963, that time period was black folks in a space most of the time that wasn't created for them. And how are you gonna network? How are you gonna build capital in order to connect, right? If you look at for example, um, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, they have undergraduate chapters from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. And on the West Coast, they have single letter chapters, which means that there are some chapters that were founded early in their history, right? And just imagine like the power of having a core group of black women, or a core group of black people that you can tap into as you traverse the country as a black person, right? To say like, hey, I made it to this stop. Who do we have here, right? So you think about sundown towns, and you think about other spaces and places where you needed to have people look out for you. So this is just that extra layer, especially from the collegiate lens of things, where we provided that safety net, that culture net, that that way to look out for each other. So I think that that's always something that, in 2023, it doesn't sound like so amazing because there's a whole different way to build networks, but it always does boil down to who do I see in the room that could look like me or can understand my experience, right? So, these organizations definitely still do serve a purpose and continue to take stands
Yep.
where where need be. So, but you say you had a second part of that question for me, or
Yeah, I
yeah.
want you to answer the same question. What is something that surprised you after you joined?
Oh, I think mine was more basic. My something that surprised me was that um, in some spaces signals were known as country, right? And I came through in California, so all the signals I knew were like urban and city like, right? And I was like, I don't understand. What do you mean sigmas are country, right? And then I went to Conclave for the first time. Conclave is like a national convention.
Mhm.
And one of the interesting things about Sigma is that we were the first, one of the first, if not the first, organization to really have chapters below the Mason-Dixon line. So the Mason-Dixon line, was how we distinguished like Deep South, right? And Sigma is very heavily populated all throughout the South. And so now I was like, oh, now I see what people meant when they said Sigmas were country, because there's lots of people that that were from the deep South and in the South that made up our organizations, right? And so I was like, oh, I see. That didn't necessarily apply to me because I can't go anywhere in the country. I'm like, I need everywhere to have lights and paved roads and things that I know how to traverse. You catch me out in the country, I'm gonna be lost, right? So that was definitely one thing that surprised me. But I think the other thing that surprised me was that um like most of the Sigmas I know, like I said, I was talking about that thread that united folks. I think most of the Sigmas that I met were always super down to earth.
Yeah.
Like they were the ones that like to get things done. That
Mhm.
didn't necessarily need the shine to be put on them or the recognition. They were just like, look, I'm just happy to be a part of the community. I'm happy to get the work done and those type of things. And I think that was exciting for me. Although I think my personality now has changed a little bit, where I'm like, look, if you deserve shine, you better stand there in the spotlight and get it right. But it
Mhm.
took me, a long time to come to some of those realizations as well. But that's just growth, right? So
Yeah, I want to add to that because we've said a little bit about how like, oh, if is Sigma or Zeta, it's all Phi Beta, but like we are really the only two Greek orgs that are constitutionally bound. Like it's written in our constitutions that we are, to pay attention to and take care of one another, essentially. And I that was another one of my surprises. And I just want to like plus one some of the things that Theo said. Like the Sigmas have always treated me like very, very well. And that was again, like I had the, women in Zeta treating me really, really well and just being very sisterly to me and teaching me to be sisterly because I had never been a sister before. And then like I would go places and the Sigmas would just be so like, yep, come on, Zetas, like you could be with us. Like some of my Sigma, like the older Sigmas in like my area, prophytes, is what we call them. If you don't already know that word, was just like, yep, come on to the house. We'll take care of you. We'll set you out. Right. And we get there and it's like, oh, we already cooked food. You don't have to worry about that. We arranged for us to get to the party. We going, like we just taking care of things. You safe with us. And it really did elevate like my experience as a young party going person back at the time because
but now you're an old party going person.
now I'm an old party going person. Don't care, still love it. I'm gonna party forever. Um, I don't even care. I'm gonna be auntie on the dance floor right now. I'll be grandma on the dance floor, childless grandma on the dance floor later on. No shame. Anyways, but yeah, like all of the things that they say about brotherhood and sisterhood, I have found to be absolutely true. I mean, the relationship that I have with Dr. Theo is only something that if the Zetas hadn't taught me to be sisterly, I probably wouldn't have even deserved this friendship because I
Look,
was a little monster back in the day.
you know what's funny though is as you spend more time in these organizations, younger people become part of the organization as well, right?
Mhm.
And that's like built-in mentoring and things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I ask my neos to always think about, right, as it relates to this Sigma Zeta relationship is, Zeta got founded in 1920, right? And I think that it's important to recognize the constitutional bond because, what other organization that was a male organization was specifically on the lookout for Black women, right? In 1920, right? Where, right now people is like, oh, queen, da da da, believe Black women, da da da, like
Mhm.
all these different things. But in 1920, we thought about, let's put this on paper that these people are important, like that from this moment forward, like this is a part of what we do, right? And I think that that's really important to think about because when you set an expectation, sometimes it's hard to find again, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's really important to make the clear statement. So, um, as folks are thinking about and choosing their organizations, think about, what are the statements that these organizations are making now?
Yep.
Do you align yourself with the choices that they're making? Those different types of things. I think that's really important. But I mean, I think we've been all like butterflies and rainbows about our org. I don't want to lie to people. Like I'll be just because you my brother, just because you my sword, don't mean you don't get on my nerves
Ooh.
very, very often. It doesn't mean that look, I feel
Yes.
like Sigma sometimes it makes me be part of the hardest working volunteer organization of all time. I'm like, another meeting, another Zoom. How long? For who? For what? Right? And so I think that that's something that is also interesting, right? Often on this podcast we talk about like organizational leadership and development and those type of things.
Mhm.
And when you're dealing with organizations that are 100 plus years old, for the most part, y'all know who I'm talking about.
Don't be
Uh,
like that. I really love them. Don't be like that.
Look, I'm just saying, I'm just saying,
Fine.
it's
100
fine.
plus old organizations.
Look, when you have organizations that are that old, transition often takes a long time. Technology adoption often takes a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, Leadership development might look different, right? And how that leadership transitions is often, part of hurdles, right? There's also social dynamics from region to region and from
Mhm.
school to school and chapter to chapter, right? All the things that you will find in a Fortune 500 company, you find in our 501c3 fraternity organizations and sorority organizations. I think it's actually a different number because it's
No,
not.
that's right. Oh no, you're right. We're 503C 50C7. 501C7.
Look,
I got it.
we got some tax exemption, something something. Don't quote
Something
us on
something.
that.
Yeah.
We
No, it's C7. I used to be a treasurer.
look at that. Um,
Also a professional skill that I used it today. Look.
Look, because who keeping track of the books for Black Social Capital? Not me. Definitely not me.
Look, and you better get the money right, or people gonna have questions and they gonna call you.
That's right, right. So, I mean, all that to say, these organizations come with their challenges. Um, you know, one of my favorite sorors, Zora Neale Hurston, is
Yay.
also famous for saying not all skin folk is kinfolk, right? And that's the same in a fraternity and sorority as well, right? There's good folk, there's bad folk, there's no folk in these organizations as well, and so
Yep.
you can use these organizations to develop your social capital, or you can just say that was a thing I did, right? So, um, so that's something I did want to say too is like, yes, we're juiced about our organizations, decades later, but there's somebody out there that's mad at the organization or somebody in the organization or those different types of things, right? So I think that can happen with any social based organization,
Yeah.
but I think you find your wins, you find your fails, but also find the space and place where you can grow the most, right? So
Yeah, and back to that, like research your organizations. I know I was very like website and look at what they do. And Dr. Theo is like, look at what they're doing locally. Also, think about your values, like he said, right? And what you want to be involved with long term. And also think about the experience that you want to have in the organization. Is it more social based? Is it that you want the mentorship? Is it that you want the professional development opportunities? Because I have definitely met people, not blue and white, but I have definitely met people in the D9 that have expressed regrets for joining their particular organizations. Not to say that that doesn't happen in blue and white, but That just hasn't been my experience. But definitely have had people join D9 organizations and be like, yeah, that wasn't it. And that's not my experience because I thought about long term how my values aligned with the organization.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that as we think about all the reasons that people might join an organization, that always plays a factor. Like your starting catalyst and starting reason might not be the reason that you stay involved,
Oh, yes.
or there might
Yes.
be reasons that you fall off and come back. Look, don't be broke and try to be in an organization. Look, look, when I was broke, coming right out of undergrad and trying to find a job, I was like, look, I'm gonna try to find some money first. I'll come back to y'all and when I have some coins to give, right? Because one thing that we say is pay your dues, right? If you ain't got no dues money, right, you can still you still frat, you still soar, but somebody gonna ask you if you paid your dues, right?
Yes.
Um, and so that's one thing I think about too is as the world changes and people's income changes, there's different ways to give through our organizations, socially, financially, through mentorship and all these things. And I think that ultimately, finances does become a big part of the name of the game, right? And so if you're thinking about joining organizations, get your coins right to join,
Yep.
because those are some fees, right? There's conferences if you choose to be a participant on those levels, right? There's conferences, and of course, there's swag, right? There's gear, there's Nelia, right? There's para, depending on where, what region you come through in, you might call it something different, but there's things to wear. And so all those things cost dollars and cents as well.
And be ready to set out new members from time to time because I will say one point of pride I have had for the last 16 years is that I have taken very good care of this sweatshirt. This is one of my gifts as a new initiate of Zeta. It's one of my crossing gifts. And I don't have any stains on it. I have taken very good care of it. And people will remember you forever when you are kind to them, when you extend gifts and things of that nature, good experiences when they are new in Zeta, as you
Look,
heard my story.
while Dr. Jackie can be excited about still wearing her Neo gear, I just want to point out that my Neo gear is in
Okay.
as a frame, right? Because the blue is all faded now. I did not take care of it because I was outside in the streets wearing it, and so when you start to create a museum of your own Nelia, that's how you know it's time for you to go sit down somewhere and somebody else need to be doing some
Oh
stuff or something. You know what I'm
no.
saying? So as soon as your stuff starts to get non-fresh, that's where you start to do the hey Neo, let me pass down this thing to you. This was my keychain. Now it's yours. This is, you
Wow.
know, as long as it don't got your name on it, it's good passing down of materials. But I wish I was like more like Dr. Jackie, taking care of my stuff because again, I started to get a museum around here.
I mean, that's some memories in a frame, though. I bet you can remember so many things and can't remember a lot of things because 20 years
I
that.
mean, that particular shirt that I showed was like my very first shirt. Uh, if I put it on right now, it would fit just right because it was 2003, right? And everything was, double XL because, you had to have the big T and the baggy jeans, but you were a college student, so you weighed 100 pounds. So I was like, I'm 100 pounds, but my shirt is double XL. I'm cool. Y'all don't want to see those pictures for real. But yeah, so that shirt is up and away. But I do have my crossing jacket and things like that. So always good memories when I rock those.
Yeah.
So man, you got us all nostalgic over here, Dr.
Yep.
Jackie.
Going down
But
memory lane.
going down memory lane, but we won't keep y'all out as we think about all of our memories. We hope that you build your own memories, your own connections with members of the Divine Nine.
Yes.
If you are part of the not of the Divine Nine, go ahead and drop some comments down
Yay.
below this video. We
Say
love to see some
hello.
shout outs, hear where people are from, tell us why you joined your org. But with that, we say welcome to season 4. We're excited to kick off with you. We've got a new day and a new schedule, right? We're
You
we're
do.
back to bi-weekly. We're
Yep.
dropping on Thursdays this year, and we've got some amazing guests, including some members of the D9 joining us this season. So we'll see y'all on the next episode, and that's a wrap. See y'all on the next one. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Remember, the way we build social capital is to build self and build others. We are sure you got some notes on your tablet, computer, or even using a pen and paper. Leave us a review, continue the conversation on social media at Black Social Cap, and share the show with someone you know. Until the next episode, stay motivated and rise together.